Just when you thought Doom 3DO was the worst thing on the 3DO, you get a recommendation by Dr. Mike to go try out the game, Love Bites. Hi, everybody. This is Kelly at KELLYTHUL on social media. And joining me, as always,
I am Dr. Mike at Official Pagan on everything. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave an extra comment because this is our first Halloween After Dark. So it's a special episode. So we need a special comment from you while you're thinking of what to write because we know you're going to want it to be a masterpiece and very lengthy. In fact, split it between multiple comments. That's fine. You can do that. While you're doing that, why don't you throw Hard No on? It's the world's shortest podcast. But while you're sitting there listening to multiple episodes of that, you're going to feel a lot better if you're wearing one of our t-shirts. So hit up the merch store.
yes, indeed. We'll have to, no t-shirts coming out of this one, as far as I can tell. So, as Mike has covered, as we've talked about 3DO and shows in the past, one of the things he's brought up a few times is that a lot of times the offerings weren't necessarily games, but they were glorified DVDs. And so Love Bites fits our Hollywood theme, or our Halloween theme for the season here, because there are like vampire teeth involved and bats that fly across the DVD menu selection. Um, but it's not much of a thing.
Right. So interactive movies for a while were supposedly the big thing. That was the next big thing. And every CD-ROM based console jumped on this at some point. But at least with the other ones, they were interactive.
Yeah.
This really isn't. And there's a lot of these interactive movies on 3DO. So 3DO has a surprising amount of titles given that it wasn't really a successful system, but it's just because they were initially able to attract a lot of developers and publishers because the fees for publishing a game for 3DO were very low compared to a lot of the other consoles. That's also what hurt it. In order to make up that difference, they had third parties manufacture the hardware, so they didn't sell it at a loss, which is typically what happens with game consoles. So because they weren't selling it at a loss, it cost the equivalent of today of over $1,000 for a 3DO. So not a lot of people bought those. But they had a lot of these interactive movies that really aren't, not in the way that like Night Trap and Sewer Shark and some of the more infamous ones are, where you are at least interacting with it, like a game. These are really just kind of proto DVDs where you're just selecting pre-recorded scenes from a DVD style menu.
Yeah. And uh so I'm trying to piece together the prem because so there is no interaction beyond pick your scene. You've got six options to
Which
go on.
they try and pitch this in an almost like choose your own adventure story sort of way, but it really isn't. It's just a DVD. It's a dressed up DVD scene selection.
Yeah, with clips that appear to propagate across multiple selections to a degree. Um, a lot of uh, a lot of fangs, and there's some captions and lead in on the first one that you start to go, oh, maybe there's kind of a I'm going to get a bit of a connected storyline, but the storyline appears to be either I need to get undressed and fall into a bed, or I need to get stabbed while I'm getting undressed, or need to drink a cup of blood and show you my fangs and get undressed.
I mean, to be fair, that is kind of how college was.
Yeah, I guess that would be, except the drinking blood part, maybe. Maybe I don't know. Maybe for you it's a little different, but for me, it was Rhinelander and not blood. So,
You'll
Rhineland is
hear
the
more
only
about
beer where the
Rhinelander
deposit money you
on
get back and almost buy you another case.
you'll hear more about Rhinelander on Hard No.
Yes, you will. So that subscription will really help there to keep up to date.
Free with your free subscription.
That's right. Every day for free.
But yeah, so back to Love Bites. So what's something positive that you would say about this?
Um, the fifth icon. There's 2 rows of 3. The icon on the bottom row in the middle is my favorite. There you go. So that's about it. And occasionally some interesting cinematography ish, sort of. But I don't really have a lot to say about it. Do you?
Yeah, I mean there's not much to this. Like Kelly said, there's no real storyline. So it's not even like, I mean, you could basically just watch these scenes in any order that you wanted to. There's no real interactivity in it whatsoever, even though Vivid made this, and as well as a number of other titles under their Vivid Interactive banner, many of which made their way to 3DO. The one thing I'll say, technologically wise, it looks and sounds good, which is something across most 3DO titles. The problem is that 3DO, in addition to being insanely expensive, really didn't have exclusive titles that would draw people into it. It had really great ports of existing games, not Doom, but like Wolfenstein 3D and Road Rash. I mean, there's some of the best versions of those games. It had a great port of Samurai Showdown and Street Fighter, but these are ports of games that most people already owned on another system. So probably as great as these ports are, and as much as they added to it in terms of the audio and visual quality, it's probably not enough to get people to go out and drop, $1,000 plus on this system and the games for it. And something like this is definitely not going to sell it either, because it's not really interactive. It's something that they could already see on late night cable as far as the content goes. So, I mean, other than the novelty of it and this one being sort of horror-ish oriented, it does show off the audio and video quality of the 3DO, but I can't imagine that this is something they put on in a store on an attract screen to get people to buy hardware.
No, not in keep your store open for very long.
It is interesting, of course, pre ESRB, some companies were a little looser with their restrictions on things. Obviously with 3DO, they were pretty loose on their restrictions with things. There's a number of these titles out. It's pretty interesting to me, because the one that of their more adult leaning stuff that gets all of the attention all the time is Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, which was a reworking of a really obscure PC game that had some extra full motion video and stuff added to it. That game gets so much attention. It's weird how much attention. It's usually negative because it's not a great game, but it's weird that gets so much attention when it's relatively tame compared to this and the other Vivid titles. So I just assume people don't know these exist for 3DO. So we're educating the public.
There you go. That's why we're here. Is to make you aware of slightly higher, well, definitely higher video quality than the Amiga offerings of the time that would also give you similar content. But this is a lot more full motion video, and the sound's great. You're right. I think that part's pretty cool. But yeah, this is an interesting one. I don't know what the sales on this were, but I can't imagine that have been huge, but hard to tell.
Yeah, I mean, my impression is that 3DO just kind of scraped by during its tenure, and I think that was mostly just based on the fact there is a huge library for it, considering how short-lived the system was. There are systems that went on a lot longer with smaller libraries, and that's just because it was easy to publish for, which is how you got titles like this. So it is interesting. You can find a lot of ROMs totally legally online for 3DO. So, I mean, I would say check out titles like this, even if it's not your kind of thing, just because it is kind of a part of video game history, and it's part of what leads us to where we are now, with sort of more adult content being just something that's accepted in games and not something that's like, weird and underground like this. There are games for all ages, and that's kind of the way that it should be, in my opinion. There should be content available for whoever wants it at different age groups.
So if you ever had any question about Dr. Mike's credibility as a physician and a man to provide advice, I think you've just heard to say to really kind of complete your work. If you're looking to become a historian, Love Bites should be part of your curriculum. I think take that into account, follow that advice, and then I think you're going to have a better point of view around the credibility of my co-host.
At least I didn't say beat him and eat him.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
I told you it was a little fun.
Bog Panda.